The country's largest Christian bookstore chain shuts its doors. NASA plans a manned mission to Mars, and witches around the world cast a spell, they say, on Donald Trump. SkyWatch TV for Wednesday, March 1st, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, Mount Etna is waking up. Etna began erupting on February 27th. The Italian volcano had kept quiet for most of 2016. Last eruptions last year took place in May, but it began waking up in January, and February 27th it actually started to erupt. The mountain is between the cities of Messina and Catania on the island of Sicily. It is spewing fountains of lava, some of them going hundreds of feet up into the air, but experts say at this point it doesn't pose any risk for now to humans. The most dangerous job on planet Earth these days might be Russian diplomat. 6 Russian diplomats have died in the last 60 days, and all but one of them on foreign soil. Some were shot, others cause of death unknown. A few cases, the deaths have been listed as heart attack or brief illness. Just specifically, to give you a few of these, Russia's ambassador to Turkey, you remember the horrible incident where he was shot at an art display on December 19th. But on the same day, another diplomat, Peter Polshakov, shot dead in his Moscow apartment. A gun was found under the bathroom sink, but circumstances of his death still under investigation. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, died in New York this past week. Initial reports said it was a heart attack. Medical examiner still examining that one. Russia's ambassador to India, Alexander Kadaykin, died after a brief illness on January 27th. The Russian consul in Athens, Greece, Andrei Malenin, found dead in his apartment on January 9th. Police officials say no evidence of a break-in. Again, still under investigation. Ex-KGB chief Oleg Erovinkin, who was suspected of drafting that fake news dossier on Donald Trump, found dead in the back of his car in Moscow, December 26th. If we go back farther than 60 days, there are 3 others. Russian diplomat Sergei Krivov found dead at the Russian consulate in New York. That was on Election Day, November 8th. November of 2015, a senior advisor to Vladimir Putin found dead in Washington, D.C. at a hotel. And so again, what's going on with Russian diplomats dropping like flies around the world? Evidence of something going on, war between the deep state factions around the world? Don't have an answer to this, just making you aware of it. President Trump proposing a huge $54 billion increase in U.S. military spending in his new budget. This would go for new aircraft, ships, and fighters. He also wants to upgrade our nuclear capabilities. The blueprint will be unveiled in more detail next month. This would fulfill his campaign pledge to boost Pentagon spending while cutting spending at other federal agencies. Domestic and foreign aid spending would absorb the $54 billion increase in military spending. The White House saying that the foreign aid budget would take some particularly deep cuts. The Associated Press is reporting that the Trump administration will not oppose, or will end its opposition rather, to Texas photo voter ID law. An attorney for the plaintiff organization that sued the state of Texas said that the Trump administration has advised her that it is dropping its challenge to the voter photo ID law. The spokesperson for the Washington-based group reportedly called the move an extraordinary disappointment. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, on the other hand, took to Twitter to praise the decision. Donald Trump expected to sign a new immigration and refugee executive order today, according to a senior administration official. Speaking on condition of anonymity, the official said the new ban could come into place as early as later today. This comes after the White House pushed back the release of a new executive order to address legal concerns with the previous order that was overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court. Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, Republican, said faith leaders should follow man's law and not harbor illegal immigrants in churches and other places of worship. Bryant told a reporter during an interview he doesn't think churches and religious organizations should shield undocumented immigrants from deportation. Quote, if you're a faith leader or anyone else, you have to look also at the nation's law. There's God's law, and then there's man's law. And man's law says that you have to go by certain rules and standards to become a citizen of the United States. End quote. Romans 13, people. be subject to the ruling authorities, up to the point that we are required to deny our faith in Jesus Christ. And harboring undocumented immigrants does not rise to that standard. CNN anchor Christopher Cuomo took to Twitter last week to express his unhappiness with President Trump rescinding the Obama administration's directive on transgender students in school bathrooms, school restrooms. The Obama administration requiring schools through a back channel regulation rather than through having Congress vote on a law that would have allowed transgender students to use the restroom that corresponded to their, well, how they felt on a given day rather than the gender on their birth certificate. Well, other users began responding to Cuomo's comments on Twitter, one saying, what do you tell a 12-year-old girl who doesn't want to see a male genitalia in the locker room? Cuomo quoted that tweet and responded, I wonder if she's the problem or her overprotective and intolerant dad. Teach tolerance, end quote. Now, Mr. Cuomo has 2 daughters, and I wonder if he genuinely would feel this way if it were his daughters in a co-ed shower at school. Yeah, I know what they would call me if our daughter were 12 and in a school with this type of locker room policy. They would call me a homeschooling dad. Now, coming up, witches aim their wands at Donald Trump. That and more straight ahead on SkyWatch TV.
You've been fighting in a war against an enemy you've been told doesn't even exist. SkyWatch TV wants to change that to prepare you for the battles ahead. Beginning March 7th, exclusively from SkyWatch TV, the Cosmic War Collection finally arrives. Featuring 3 groundbreaking books, a 5-hour DVD, and a 7-hour audio series showing you how real the supernatural War of Kingdoms actually is. Reversing Hermon by acclaimed Bible and ancient language scholar Dr. Michael S. Heiser, and The Great Inception by SkyWatch TV's Derek P. Gilbert. You'll learn how Christ's full mission has been misunderstood for 2,000 years. Not only did he come to shed his blood to redeem mankind, Jesus was on a mission to reverse the sin of the angelic watchers who descended on Mount Hermon. You'll also discover how Bible stories you've known since childhood were literal battles in the spirit realm between God and the gods who rebelled. When you order the Cosmic War Collection from SkyWatch TV, you'll receive Reversing Hermon by Dr. Michael S. Heiser, The Great Inception by Derek P. Gilbert, a new, exclusive, never-before-offered deluxe hardcover collector's edition of the Book of Enoch, The Real Clash of the Titans DVD, a special, never-before-released video compilation with 5 hours of teaching on the long war between God and the gods, and The Unseen Adversary, a brand new audio series on MP3 disc with 7 hours of Derek P. Gilbert interviewing Dr. Michael Heiser on the Watchers, UFOs, and the Great Cosmic Rebellion of Satanic Forces. A value of more than $100, yours for just $29.95. The Cosmic War Collection, available beginning March 7th only from SkyWatch TV. Know your enemy. Order the Cosmic War Collection beginning March 7th by calling 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.
Family Christian Stores, the nation's largest chain of Christian bookstores, has announced it's closing its doors after 85 years in business. The announcement came last Thursday. Didn't specify a timetable for the liquidation. This will affect more than 3,000 employees at more than 240 stores in 36 states around the country. You might remember in 2015, Family Christian went through Chapter 11 bankruptcy to shed some debt and was sold for $55 million. Sadly, that has not saved the chain. In Korea, about 90,000 birds have been culled as a precautionary measure against the spread of avian influenza, bird flu. The slaughter comes after local authorities determined that these birds might have been exposed to a strain of bird flu being spread by migratory birds. Since November, South Korea has destroyed more than 33 million birds in the worst outbreak of avian flu in its history. Is the menorah from the Second Temple in Jerusalem, hidden away in the depths of the Vatican. The question is coming to light again after the announcement of an upcoming exhibit jointly sponsored by the papacy and the Jewish community in Rome, which goes back to before the time of Jesus Christ. A Vatican museum official said that the menorah is the theme of the upcoming exhibit. Organizers said it recounts the multi-millennia incredible and suffered history of the menorah. When the temple was destroyed by the Roman legions in AD 70 during the sack of Jerusalem, the menorah, which stood over 5 feet tall and was made over 130 pounds of solid gold, was carried back to Jerusalem. That's an event that's recorded on the Arch of Titus. The Jewish sources, rather, also contain many first-hand accounts who reportedly saw the menorah in Rome after the destruction of the temple almost 2,000 years ago. NASA is planning for a manned mission to Mars in 2030. However, in order to get there, it's got to keep the payload of the capsule as light as possible. So it's researching ways to manufacture food and shelter on Mars once the astronauts get there. It's funding 2 research programs to come up with a way for the crew to, feed and house itself. They'll work on producing food, fuel, and pharmaceuticals for astronauts on planet, and in developing specialized building materials to build shelter by extracting metal from the soil of Mars. No word about shielding them from radiation exposure, which, considering that Mars has no electromagnetic field or magnetic field and no real atmosphere to speak of, which here on Earth shields us from more than 99.9% of the radiation that kind of floats around in space, that might be a good idea too. We may be looking at having to build everything underground if astronauts ever make it to the red planet. And a private company, Elon Musk's SpaceX, has announced that it's going to send a manned mission to the moon, or around the moon anyway, in 2018. An unmanned test mission will be launched to the International Space Station soon. The second mission, which will include crew, is scheduled to fly next year. Musk said that the moon mission, is designed to be autonomous, in other words, not depending on the European Space Agency, NASA, or any other agency around the planet. Unless something goes wrong, the passengers would fly to the moon but would not land on it. And finally, in what is being dubbed the magic resistance, witches around the nation and around the world announced the launch of a mass spell to be performed at every waning crescent moon while Donald Trump remains President of the United States. They've got their own Facebook page. As of this morning, more than 13,000 followers. Various covens throughout the United States participated in its first spell Friday, invoking Wiccan spirits to stop both the president and his supporters. Now, we saw a lot of emails about this last week. You probably did too if you're on social media. Should Christians begin praying for Donald Trump? No. We should have been praying for him all along. That's a biblical command. In fact, we should have been praying for President Obama, President Bush before him, President Clinton before him, whether you supported any of them or not. That is a command in the Bible. Now, the bigger question, at least as far as us here at SkyWatchTV, if you watched yesterday's program where Josh, Jake, and myself just sat down and basically continued a conversation that we had started in Josh's office about a sense of oppression and heaviness that we've been feeling around the office here since last week, Tuesday. Does this magic resistance have anything to do with that? I honestly don't know. I don't want to give them more credit than they deserve. But it is a reminder to us that we need to be in prayer always, and especially for each other. Jesus warned us as his followers, we were going to suffer tribulation. The enemy wants to kill you and everyone that you love. And I mean second death type killing. All of us are going to die at some point. But that just means graduating from this physical shell into a new body. What we want to avoid is the second death, the lake of fire. The Apostle James wrote in chapter 1, verse 2 of his epistle, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Now, what we've learned over the last week is it's a lot easier to say that and pass that along to someone else who's going through a time of trouble when it ain't happening to you. Now, having said all that, I'll repeat what we said yesterday. Things around here, physically, equipment-wise, financially, we're fine. Since we posted yesterday's program, within a couple of hours, we had dozens of responses, posts at YouTube, emails that came in to me, Josh, and Jake, and some of them will literally make you cry. It does confirm that something is going on out there in the spirit realm. I'm not the most sensitive guy when it comes to that, so for me to even say this is the first time I'd ever said something like this publicly, okay? I was raised to believe when you're experiencing emotional or mental distress, it's probably lack of sleep, improper nutrition, or saying yes to taking on one too many projects, something like that. No, too many people feeling the same thing at the same time. Something's going on out there. But like I said, this is just a reminder to us that we need to be in prayer always, and especially for one another. It's a spiritual war that we're fighting. Prayer is our weapon. And we thank you for your prayers. And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.